Hello, everybody. Today I'm going to talk to you about an apparatus that I've set up for bleeding brakes. There's lots of single-handed or one-man brake bleeding videos out there, so I'm not going to go through any of that. I just want to show you this apparatus in particular. The problem I found with the other ones was you'd have to clean out you'd have a cylinder that you would pump with brake fluid in it, and you have to clean it out, and it oxidizes the brake fluid, and yet when you pour it back in, it reduces the life, and so on. So what this one does is we're going to just be pressurizing basically putting a constant pressure on the brake cylinder reservoir, the brake reservoir, and and then being able to mobily move around to the different points, to the different brake parts. So I start off with a basic tank with a whatever connector you guys use for quick disconnect. This tank's got about 40 pounds of pressure on it. Then we've got this little cap that I've made. This is off of my Porsche, but it's a standard cap, brake reservoir cap. I've drilled a hole in and put a double nipple in. These are 1/4 inch double nipples, and that will go on to the brake fluid reservoir. The other thing I have here is this little piece, and basically this is the male section that goes into the tank below. A pressure regulator with a up to 30 psi, no larger, otherwise the readings get awful small. Pressure regulator, a dryer, and a on-off valve with a 1/4 inch nipple on the end of that. What I use is a 1/4 inch ID tubing, and this thing's about 15 feet long. So if you can just picture, we've got one end of this that will be plugged into the cap at the reservoir. Okay, and then we will put this apparatus onto there, and then on the other end of that, we'll go ahead and plug in the other end. So we have now, we turn on the pressure here, and what we'll do is we'll set this using the regulator to about 12 psi. The valve is closed right now. And then we go over to the brake reservoir and then screw this on. Once it's screwed on, we can turn on the valve, and now we've got constant 12 pounds of pressure until the tank runs out, which, since there's no flow, appreciable flow, that will never happen. So that's the initial setup. One thing you want to make sure is that you don't run out of fluid at the brake reservoir. So brake fluid reservoir, so you need to keep attention to that. But again, this is now very mobile. You can let it keep bleeding and go back and forth to check what the level is in the reservoir. One thing I like to do is, instead of using just regular compressed air, I like to use nitrogen in here. And the reason for nitrogen is heavier than air. So when you use it to pressurize the brake fluid reservoir, that headspace in there is nitrogen. And there's no oxygen because, again, it's heavier than air. And what it will allow you to do is it'll limit the amount of oxygen in the brake fluid reservoir. Not a big thing, but it will reduce oxidation at the reservoir. So I hope you found this helpful. It's something that I've done, and it's a really pretty quick, easy, and clean way to bleed your brakes.